I have a story to tell of something that happened to me and my husband when we were both 20 years old. He didn't want me to tell anyone, so I didn't. He passed away last year, so I guess it doesn't matter anymore. My husband and I moved into a large apartment. We had a baby, September of 1969. My husband got a new job where he had to work late hours. I wasn't used to being left alone, and with a new baby, I was uneasy. I thought it would be a good idea to stay at my parents' home in Lake Station, Indiana, and my husband could pick me up on the way home from work. All went as planned for a couple of months. My husband would usually pick me up about 11 p.m. One night, in November of 1969, my baby was a month old, and I was so embarrassed because he didn't pick me up until 2 a.m. I was so angry that I wouldn't talk to him. We drove away in silence for our 20-minute ride home. While on the road, my husband asked me to look at something in the sky that he could see on the left side of the road. I wouldn't look, though, because I had my face turned away from him. I was still angry. He started to get really excited and finally yelled at me to look. I looked and saw a big round ball of orangey red light. It was really big. I told him it was the setting sun. He told me to think about what time it was. No setting sun at almost 3 in the morning. I watched it, and it was moving along with the car. The ball of light stopped in the sky right above us. So we had to back up to be even with it, and he pulled over on the side of the road. At the same time, I noticed that a man in a pickup truck had also stopped right behind us. I started getting a little nervous about the guy in the pickup truck more than the light in the sky. There were no other cars on the road. I took my eyes off of the light in the sky and watched the man. He got out of his truck and started running back and forth. He seemed very agitated, but then something else got my attention. The light in the sky was now moving over us to my side of the car. It did a sort of an arch over the car. Then it started slowly moving straight up, made a sharp turn, and started going over a neighborhood away from the main street that we were on. My husband said, "Hold on, I'm going to follow it." We started driving down through the neighborhood for a few minutes until it stopped again. This time, it shot straight up and in a very fast rate of speed and disappeared from view. We stopped the car and just sat there for a minute. I told my husband that I was going to call someone and report it. He told me not to call anyone because they were going to say we were crazy. We went home and listened to the radio to find out if anyone else had reported seeing it. We didn't hear anything about it, though. The strangest thing about that night was that it took us 3 hours to get home. We lived 20 minutes from my parents. We followed the light for about 15 minutes to half an hour. I don't know why we walked into our apartment as the sun was coming up around 6:30 in the morning. The baby in my lap never made a sound. At that time, in 1969, I had not heard about flying saucers, except in cartoons. I also hadn't heard of missing time, so I had nothing to compare the incident with. I never mentioned it to anyone until many years later to my sisters. I know this isn't the kind of story you use, but I just had to tell someone. I always thought that someday I would find out what we saw, but sadly, it never happened. Sonia Guzman. I would like to stay completely anonymous, as I still hold a position in a state agency, and this could affect any further employment at a new agency. It's hard enough to get hired in a job, let alone an advancement, at my age. That said, I am in good health, active, and have many outdoor hobbies, such as hunting, fishing, and camping. My daughter attends the University of West Florida, and I had just finished getting her settled in her dorm room, stocked up on groceries and other essentials. I left in the late morning to head back home, which is east of Pensacola, some 3+ hours away. All through the first hour or so, there were tremendous rain bands like we are used to here in Florida. As I was traveling on Interstate 10, the trailer trucks would put up a literal fog of water spray, so I wasn't going more than 50 miles per hour. As I got out of the last rain band, the sky got brighter and brighter, to the point where I could get back up to 70 miles per hour. I was still following a car at about 10 car lengths. I checked the rear view and no traffic behind, and I remember looking around the car ahead and nothing for some distance. I was just about ready to pass the car in front of me when he put on his brakes and I closed distance to him fairly quickly. I braked also, not knowing what was ahead of him. Maybe a truck tire carcass, and he could swerve into my lane as I pass him. Even though I am driving a pickup truck, I ride a motorcycle and sort of drive like I ride, very defensively. As I slowed, I noticed some movement off the road. We were both in the right lane. On the other side of the guardrail, something caught my eye. We had just come over either a swampy area or a small creek, so there was a guardrail over that area. Still, there was a gully between the guardrail and the tree line, maybe 20 feet deep. Almost instantly, I thought bear, but wrong color. Our bear here are jet black, and if they stand, and you have the rare chance to see that, they aren't very tall. The next thought I had was a man in a ghillie suit, but wrong again. This was not material, it was hair. Matted down, wet hair. And the height, maybe 8 feet. It was huge. So as I saw it, by this time I was almost stopped. The car ahead directly abeam of the creature had stopped or was very slow. What I saw was a living creature, everything articulated perfectly. Head, arms, and legs. I had a profile to a back view of it, saw its muscles in the upper back. The color wasn't exactly uniform, but varied between shades of chocolate brown. The head looked rounded. I couldn't see ears or a neck, but it definitely had a head and looked down before stepping into the gully. At that time I saw arms that moved, but really saw the separate legs and saw what was matted hair stuck together from the leg. It stepped down, rounded the gully, and out the other side to go into the tree line. Its motion was very smooth, almost like it was gliding. So even if a man could don a suit and act like an 8-foot-tall living creature, how did he manage to walk down a steep embankment that was grassy and wet? Any human would fall flat on his butt, or tumble dangerously down the embankment. Anyway, I hurriedly called the wife, who laughed at me for a minute or two, but then realized I was serious. She said get the license plate of the car, which I didn't, and asked where I was. I was surprised that I hadn't done all that. Frankly, I think I was dazed. Well, I know there is someone else that saw this thing, but that is about all. I would estimate this thing weighed about 400 to 500 pounds. It wasn't fat or barrel-chested, It wasn't skinny either, like it didn't have enough to eat. It was healthy and athletic in appearance, and it sure covered a difficult area in no time.